Hello and welcome. This is Gillman. I am joined by.
I am known as Squall Snake, the editor-in-chief of MyGamer.com, and today we are playing something special.
I've been waiting for Eiyuden Chronicles for 5 years, probably at this point.
It's been delayed a few times.
A few is an understatement. They tried to use COVID as an excuse. That stops working after 2 years. So one of the really cool things about this game that I'm going to point out right away is right towards the top. Let's zoom in and see. Right here is like a gate to another area. And in most games, you'd be like, oh, that's going to stop me from going over there and progress. You go right in and cross over to the other area if you want to.
So you can kind of go wherever you want, whenever you want.
Yeah. So if I'm not super far in this game, but I'm far enough, and I've explored a bunch of places. I'm really impressed. If you like Suikoden games, this is Suikoden. It plays more like it. There are Suikoden titles, Suikoden is I believe the correct pronunciation, but fuck that. That feel less like Suikoden than this game does. Like they have a tactics game, they have the one on the DS that had nothing to do with the series. It was literally Konami being like, oh, let's see if we can do something with this title. That one, it's fine. It's a fine RPG, but it's not a Suikoden game.
Yeah, my experience with this series is limited, but I know that people really like the Suikoden series, and we know Konami doesn't really like to make games anymore. So there's no chance of actually. So to have like this, spiritual sequel.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I appreciate that, this art style of it. Like it's not this square HD 2D that has that weird blur that I hate so much, like that fisheye lens blur. Like just give me the whole thing. Like I want to look into the background and see stuff. So I really like this art style a lot. The kind of like the 2D sprites on a 3D,
but the sprites are done really well.
That's exactly what I was just going to say. Like it's done the right way. It's not just like these lower res sprites that like really don't look right.
So if you've played Suikoden,
how's this battle system work?
It's Suikoden. It's the same as 2.
So like, does everybody attack at once?
There is a turn order, but it's pretty close to being all at once. So like you have the combo attacks, same fucking thing as in Suikoden. Yeah, and it zooms in dramatically and all of that shit. This is Suikoden. I know I keep saying that, but it's really, when someone says something's going to be a spiritual successor, even like Castlevania when they did, what the fuck was that?
Lords of Shadow?
No, the 2D one that was kickstarted. They did a spiritual successor, and it's.
Oh yeah. Bloodstained,
yeah.
Yes, yeah.
So you just walk to the other area. It's like, okay, we're just there now. So Bloodstained, it you could tell it was inspired by Castlevania, but it didn't play a super lot like Castlevania. There, like, you could tell there were differences in it.
So do you get a bunch of people in your party, like a bunch of like NPCs that you can recruit? Is that like the gimmick? I know
I've already recruited 2 NPCs. So the guy on the top left in like pink, I recruited, and the magical girl on the bottom right, I recruited.
Who's the wolf dog guy?
He's just part of the game.
Okay.
And so part of their Kickstarter thing that they did deliver on was they were going to do a prequel to this. That was a side-scrolling 2D action game. I actually played all of that.
When was that?
That came out.
Nope.
A couple years ago.
Hmm.
I'm gonna say probably 2001, and it was supposed to be like, it was a full game, but it was supposed to be this fun bonus prequel thing for people who supported the Kickstarter. I'm sorry, my cat just jumped in my face.
Well, I mean, speaking of Bloodstain, they did the same thing. They're like, we're going to make this big console game, but then they also made the 8-bit indie creates like a original Castlevania, which were fantastic. Those games, I even think those little smaller games are better than the big game. To be honest with you, those are exceeding. Those are very, very well done. Yeah. So there's Bloodstained. There was 2 Bloodstained, 8-bit kind of like the D-makes, if you will. Like those pre-order kind of special bonuses, and then the big one, and like there were, I mean, all the games were great, but I really liked the
8-bit.
Yeah, those are like
really
well done.
I thought they had announced they were doing another big one.
Maybe, or maybe that was another Kickstarter thing that's still going. I don't know.
No, it was so like the second one of this one probably won't be a Kickstarter. So the artist on this, I believe it was the artist, passed away directly before this game came out.
Oh.
Yeah, that was a bummer, because he's done the art on like every single Suikoden game. But the prequel game that came out, it's funny because the magical girl was also in that game. It's the same sprites, and like there are some enemies that are the same enemies, and it's like, well, of course it's okay to reuse the same assets. It's the same world.
It's the same world. It's the same characters. Sure, why not? Yeah, save a little bit of the development time, if anything.
Yeah. So it was like, okay, so they were just that one that came out. It was just something they figured they could do with the assets they had. Okay.
That prequel game, was that another RPG? Was that like we're gonna make this a side-scrolling?
It was a 2D Metroidvania RPG. So it was. It was like a Metroidvania with levels.
Okay, so not a typical turn-based battle RPG.
No, it was very much an action game. Okay.
Yeah, I'm just kind of glad to see like these older RPGs kind of like coming back a little bit. Square again's doing it like with the HD 2D stuff. Here we have this, Suikoden, however you want to say it, Suikoden. Whatever happened to like Breath of Fire. Like that's the other RPG that like has just been long gone.
So, Suikoden was so beloved that it got one game after its Trainwreck game, because Suikoden was always, from what I remember for the most part, a word-of-mouth game. Like the first one came out, and if you knew someone who had it, they recommended it to you because it was like really good. When the second one came out, same thing. Third one, same thing. And there are people who are constantly just discovering it, especially on the PS2 with the third one.
Right.
That one, a lot of people really loved. I didn't like it as much because it's tonally very, very different from 1 and 2. And then 4 came out. Everyone fucking hated 4. And they got one more game, 5, and 5 played exactly like 1 and 2. But they like never really did anything after that. A lot of games release their shit game and they don't get another chance. But they got one more and it was sort of over. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, look at like Fire Emblem's another good example. Like there's been a bunch of Fire Emblem games and they're like, all right, we're going to make Fire Emblem Awakening, and if this doesn't sell, we're never going to make another Fire Emblem game. And sure enough, it sold well, and now look at Fire Emblems all over the place, even like Dynasty Warriors clones and stuff.
Yeah.
So like that one game was the make or break game.
Breath of Fire Dragon Quarters, so that was 5? no one liked.
Yeah.
I actually really like that game. And I think if it released now, people would like it a lot more because of it's not uncommon to get a difficult game.
Plus, I think you got to remember too, back in like that PS2 era, even like that certain PS1 era, like so many games were coming out, like, and they were all different and unique. Like now, if you get a game that come out, it's going to be like, all right, it's just this year's Call of Duty, this year's Assassin's Creed, this year's Madden. Like it's just like rehashed. Whereas like this stuff was this was new, and we got a bunch of this stuff back in the day, and like the landscape was like, let's just release there's just like a lot of games coming out. They're not established IPs. It was like we didn't realize it at the time, but we were kind of spoiled. Like there was like all this crazy stuff, like Katamari Damacy came out, like that never.
And it's
like,
funny
it's
because
people,
the PS2 was when I first remember developers bitching that it was getting expensive to make games.
Yes. Oh, and now it's just out of control.
Well,
so,
and in all honesty, I think that the PS2, PS1, PS2, but mainly PS2, was the era that the technology was advanced enough to make really good, pretty close, like modern games. Like like you could play a lot of those games, and they play like you'd expect them to back in the day. It's nothing super surprising about it or anything. Okay, this is the bar. It was advanced enough to give you to do what you wanted it to, but not advanced enough that it was costing like, I think they said The Last of Us 2 costs like 200 million or something.
That's why you get all these studios closing, because they're putting all their eggs in one basket trying to make these ridiculously big AAA games, and we don't see a lot of big releases these days. Like I remember, again in the late PS1 era, the PS2 era, there was games coming out all the time. It's like, oh, did you play this? Did you see this? Like, oh, look at that, that's different. Like Devil May Cry started there. Like if people were talking about, here's this crazy new IP, and like when Resident Evil was new, and like you said, like, oh, you'd play Suikoden, like, oh, play this weird RPG that I got. Like we don't really, I feel like we don't. There's none of that today. Like there's these. We've been covering on MyGamer the small games that everybody overlooks. The big sites overlook. The very few magazines are left overlook these smaller games. But these smaller games are like where I have the most fun, because they're not these AAA games that are rehashes of something that's already been done a million times, but it's just developers just trying to play it safe because that's the only thing that they can get away with. Because if you can't sell, you can't.
And a lot of that stuff is like diminishing returns, is that you can keep throwing money at stuff and it will keep getting better, but it's, it
can only
hits
sell
a
so many copies.
Well, and it hits a plateau that you're like, yeah, we could throw another $10 million at this game, but is it going to get $10 million better?
Is it going to get $10 million back? Probably not. So like, yeah. So I mean, it's just a weird,
The Last of Us 2 supposedly did not turn a profit.
Maybe. I mean, I think they're turning, maybe now with the TV series, there's going to be a season 2, because it's funny because right now, because the Fallout show just came out on Amazon, and all the like Fallout 4 sold like 400 times the amount that it sold in like the last couple years, like, because it's like you get this other thing to tie in with that, and so it just sells all the previous games. So like when The Last of Us 2 season 2, the TV series comes out, they will get just more sales of the previous games just inevitably through that, because people get excited about it. But yeah, it comes to a point where you're not going to see games like this that we're playing here. Are we going to ever see a Breath of Fire again? Like, I don't know, maybe not. Or if it is, it's going to be like some shitty mobile game or something like that nobody cares about, because that's like where they think the money is.
I just wanted to check how long we were going. This game did not cost $100 million.
No.
I mean, it probably cost a couple million or something. But the cool thing about that is they probably got that back with the Game Pass deal with Microsoft from Microsoft.
I was just going to say that myself, and they've had this on the Game Pass, coming soon, watch list forever, months and months. It's been that
and
first
they also
tile.
Still have the other game, the prequel game on it. So if you're interested at all in that, I would recommend it. It is entirely a different type of game, but it's actually pretty good, and it's still the same world.
Is it still called Eiyuden Chronicles? Because I didn't even know about that.
I think that one's Rising, is what it's. Eiyuden Chronicles Rising.
Oh, God, yeah, I'm gonna have to check that out then, because I didn't know anything about it. So I've had limited experience with Suikoden, like I said, but I've always just heard good things. It's like kind of shame on me for not playing it. I totally should play. So I've always heard like 1 and 2 are like the best in the series.
1 and 2, it depends on who you fucking ask. If 3 was their first game, I've heard a lot of people say 3. Mm-hmm. Like they played 3 and then went back and played 1 and 2, and they're like, 1 and 2 were really good. 2 is one of the best RPGs ever made. I would say 5 is probably better than 1, but 1 was also a launch title for the PS1.
Right. Yep. I'd be curious to see if they ever. Well, you know what? Now that you mention it, didn't they say that there was going to be like a 1 and 2 compilation HD?
And that's also been delayed to high.
Yeah, yep. I kind of remember that's a thing Konami actually promised that like a long time. That might have been like 2 years ago now.
Oh yeah, it's on my wish list in Steam.
Whatever happened to that? Because that'd be the time to play it. Because I'm sure if they HDify, yeah, sure it'll look better, but they're going to add the quality of life features, kind of like what they did when they remade the Final Fantasy remasters. Like you could click in the one analog stick, you played at like 10 speed, you click the other analog stick, you get invincibility, so you don't have to like grind the battles that you don't want to grind. Like those little things. Yeah, that's going to be interesting to see whenever that comes out.
All right, sir. So how do you feel about this game?
Yeah, I have it downloaded because it just became available on Game Pass. So I haven't had a chance to play it yet. I want to give it a shot myself. So yeah, if you have Game Pass, definitely check it out. I think these are the kind of games that we should be supporting, so we don't just get the new Maddens and the new Assassin's Creeds. Like, let's try to support something a little different, something a little new, so we can get more of this kind of stuff in the future, and that's not a Square HD 2D game. So
and this is the best game I've played all year so far.
There you go.
I'm only 3 hours into it, so my opinion could change, but
high praise. So yeah, give it. I wonder how long this game is. Is this going to be a 40-hour game? Is this a 200-hour RPG?
I'm probably going to say it's between 40 and 60.
Sure. Okay, that could be somewhat digestible for some players. And again, if it's on Game Pass, you got nothing to lose. So give it a.
Game Pass will occasionally, I'm pulling up Game Pass here, have a thing on the PC that says that they tie it to the how long to beat.
Long to beat.
It hasn't been out long enough.
Sure. Oh, gotcha. Yeah, and how long to beat probably hasn't been updated yet because it's only been out not even like a week or whatever.
No, it came out yesterday.
Yes, there you go. So yeah, give it a week or two, and then we'll get that information. But yeah, probably a few dozen hours.
Yeah, I'm going to say it's probably a typical JRPG length.
Yeah. So yeah, give it a shot on Game Pass. You got nothing to lose. Check us out at MyGamer.com. We are posting all the reviews on games that nobody else is covering, these small games that we mentioned before. And then you can follow me on Twitter at ZachGaz, CackGaz. And until next time, thank you for watching, and game on.